Hey friends, I'm Dr. Tracy, and this is Kingdom Recovery just for today. I hope you're doing well today. The topic that I'd like to talk about and questions I'd like to ask you today is, do you have a foundation? Many times in our process of recovery, when we find ourselves broken, we find ourselves destroyed, part of the problem that we discover is that we never had a proper foundation. Now, I could talk about all kinds of things on this topic. I'm just going to touch some quick, easy parts that have to be in your foundation. I personally grew up in the state of Michigan. And in the state of Michigan, because it's very cold there and because the ground is very hard and it's a whole different type of soil, people would dig very deep, like 8 feet deep in the ground, and build a basement before they would ever put a house on it, because a house without that kind of foundation couldn't withstand the cold years. Like it would just dilapidate, I think is how you say that word, and it would break down, and it would the house would tip, and it would, because of the climate and hot and cold and hot and cold and severe cold. And so the foundations that were built on just a few bricks, after a number of years, would crumble and the house would actually collapse. Then God moved me to the state of Georgia. I remember the first house I found in a little town called Thomaston, where I started when I first came to Georgia. And I pulled up to this house that I was going to see if I could rent it for some time until I really knew where God was going to locate me. And I could see right underneath the house. The house was literally sitting on a couple of bricks. I was like, what kind of a house is this? And I found that in Georgia, where the climate was warmer, they found that, it was better for the house to have air underneath it to breathe in some situations. And people would build houses on bricks, and then they would put jacks underneath and keep jacking the house up after a certain of years. What I did find, though, in that house is, as it gotten older, the floors were sagging, but it didn't collapse because they would constantly jack it up. Have you been jacking up your life because you don't have a proper foundation? It's really important to realize that no matter when you do it, if you didn't get a foundation growing up, you didn't get a spiritual foundation, you didn't get a foundation of knowledge and understanding, the importance of environment, the importance of education, whatever it might be that you were lacking in your foundation that caused you to be broken, caused you to be attracted to the wrong kind of people, caused you to grow up in poverty, whatever the situation is that formed you and shaped you, it's never too late to give yourself or to put yourself in a foundation. You might have to renovate some things, or you might have to leave the house where you were and just start building all over again. Only you can determine whether or not where you're at in your life is salvageable, or if you need to start completely over and rebuild your life one stone, one brick at a time, until there's a strong foundation under you. If you found that you live in cycle after cycle after cycle, it might be time to just set that house aside, give it to somebody else, and rebuild your house and start fresh and start new. A lot of people in recovery do move to new locations and new places, away from old people and playgrounds, so that they can focus and they can start a new life without ever being reminded by those who are familiar with them about their past. And that's another way that we can build a new foundation in our life, is just start somewhere fresh. Start somewhere where no one knows us. Start somewhere new and rebuild our life in a way that we're happy with and content with and stronger in. No one has to stay where they came from. The little town that I grew up in Monroe, Michigan, that was kind of the mindset of my hometown, was once you're born here, you're not supposed to leave here. And if you leave here, there's something wrong with you. And so many of the people that I grew up with have never left that town. They've never traveled. They've never gone anywhere else. They've remained in that town. So another thing that we have to look at in our foundation is the strongholds that keep us in bondage. And I'll talk about that another time. Today, I just want to talk about a few things that we have to have in our foundation. First is faith. Faith, hope, and trust. I'm just going to talk about 3 things that have to be stones in your foundation. Faith, hope, and trust. Now, how do you get these stones? Where do you pick them up from? You know, you can't go over to Home Depot and buy a foundation of hope, faith, and trust. But you can recognize that faith comes by what you hear. So you begin to hear different things than what you heard before when your foundation crumbled. What was it? Was it verbal abuse? Was it shame? Was it low self-esteem? Was it patterns and ways of believing things, doing it like mama did it? You know, I think about this story of a grandmother who every year prepared a Christmas dinner for her family. And before the family came, she would cut a ham in half and she would put it in 2 pans and put it in the oven. And then as she grew up, her daughter grew up with her, she did the same thing. And now here's the granddaughter. And she comes into her grandmother's house. She said, Grandma, you and Mama, I'm getting ready to get married, and you and Mama always cut the ham in half. What's the secret of cutting the ham in half? And the grandmother said, well, honey, I don't know why your mother did it, but the reason I did it was because my pan wasn't big enough. And I had to put the ham in 2 pans. And the little girl who had grown up always thought that this was some special recipe or some special way to prepare a ham. But actually it was that her grandmother's stove was too small and her pans were too small to put the whole ham in. So sometimes we can follow the beliefs and the patterns of other people blindly. We don't know that the reason they did that was because of where they came from, and that might not be the healthiest way for us to build our life. We pick up old patterns and old ways of belief from the people who raised us and the people who nurtured us, but sometimes we have to lay those things aside and do something new. I'll guarantee you, she probably didn't cut her ham in half unless she just wanted to do it to honor her grandmother from that day forward. So faith comes by hearing. So we have to, in order to have a foundation of faith in our life, we need to hear. And hearing by the Word of God. It's the Word of God that's going to set you free from any place of bondage, any place of sorrow, shame, or lack of joy, lack of wealth. All those things are going to be broken by hearing the Word of God. So I encourage you to build the foundation of faith. And then there's that one of hope. What is hope? Hope is expectation for something to happen. What is your foundation looking at like today in regards to hope? Do you expect good things to happen? Are you expecting change to take place? Are you expecting your life to get better? Are you expecting your body to get stronger? What is your expectation? Do you have hope? If you have hope, you're expecting things. You're expecting change. You're expecting yourself to get better. You're expecting yourself to get stronger. You're expecting to be able to say no to drugs. You're expecting to be able to say no to abuse. You're expecting to say yes to following the rules and the guidelines of life. You're expecting to respect others. You're expecting to show love. What is your hope? Are you expecting change? Are you expecting something to happen? You can also have a place of hopelessness. That's expecting nothing but bad to happen. Or it's not expecting any change or anything to happen. Some people, you tell them, oh, why bother? Nothing's going to happen for me. You have no hope. You have to have hope. And hope comes from also hearing the Word of God. Faith produces hope. And hope produces perseverance, and perseverance produces love. And so then we look at faith and hope, and our last foundation stone I want to talk about today is trust. What is trust? Trust is a firm belief in the reliability, the truth, and ability and strength of someone or something. So when you trust something, you rely on it. Example, you might walk in your house and turn on a light switch. Now, you operated in faith that when you flip the switch, the light would come on. But you also operated in trust because you had a belief, a firm belief that when you did that, something would respond to it. Your house would have the light on. If you sit in a chair, you operating in trust. Also, we are operating in faith at the same time. Trust is believing that we can rely on someone or something to help us in our journey. So my time's already up today. I can't believe I've been sitting here talking to you for 10 minutes. But as Kingdom Recovery today, I'm Dr. Tracy, and I want you to know, build a firm foundation. Don't have to keep jacking your life up and throwing things up underneath, trying to keep things up in your life. Take time to renovate your house, the house of your heart, the house of your mind, the house of your body, the house of your emotions, the house of your family, the house of your choices, the house of the diet that you take in, the house of what you put before your eyes and in your ears. Let faith be developed. Let hope be developed. Expect change. Have joyful expectation. Have some hope that things can get better if you will apply the truth to your life. And lastly, trust. Trust people. Trust in someone, in something to help you in your journey. But most of all, trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make that path straight. I'm Dr. Tracy, and this is Kingdom Recovery, just for today.